Welcome to Geocache Adventures with me, Shadow Dragon 1, where I discuss geocaching and my adventures with it. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts or on the Geocache Adventures Facebook page. You can also sign up for the Geocache Adventures newsletter, which features upcoming episode information, behind-the-scenes articles, and other fun articles and information. This interview was recorded using Zoom and may sound different than other podcast audio. Hi, everybody. Amy, Shadow Dragon 1 here, and I am here with Mike, fellow geocacher and fellow podcaster, host of the Where Is It Now podcast. Thank you for joining us.
I am glad to be here. Thanks, Amy.
So one of the things I like to ask my guests is, what is your geocaching name?
Well, my name is Where Is It Now! !
How did you start geocaching? How did this all happen for you?
Well, I remember I was sitting, it was the house we live in now, and I was reading an actual analog copy of Mental Floss magazine. And I say that because I haven't read an analog book or read an analog magazine for a long time. So I was reading Mental Floss, and they were talking about things to do that, were kind of different. I don't know what the article actually was, but I read about geocache, and they said, oh yeah, that sounds good. And I got up off the couch and bought the app and went out and found a geocache right that minute.
What kind of geocache was it? Were you hooked after that first one? Did you have to go find a couple different ones? What's the story there?
I was totally hooked. It was 0.7 of a mile from my home. And so I just searched the nearest one. And I was I even bought my premium membership right then. So, man, I was ready. I could see everything. And it was called Frankenstein on 43. And it was a little Frankenstein sippy cup that was purple. It was a purple Frankenstein monster with a green head that were leaves. And I went and I found, and it took me a while, it's like, where is it? Where is it? And I just remember that first moment of, oh my God, I found it. And it was awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did not go find another one that day, but I went almost every day, and I woke up before work every day and went for an hour and went every day after work.
Nice.
I was hooked.
So what kind of stats do you have currently?
Well, I looked this up because you said you were going to ask me. So here's where I am. So I am at, as far as finds go, I'm at 6,747. So 6,747, 227 hides. And this is what's kind of fun for me is 779 counties in 48 states and in 5 countries so far.
What are the 2 states that you're missing? Is it Hawaii and Alaska?
Oh, wait, 47 states.
47
Hawaii,
states.
Alaska, and Montana. So my wife, who is a Muggle, and her geocaching name is He Made Me. I'll give you one guess who named her that. Everywhere we go geocaching, and we were on a trip where I had 45 states, and we went on a trip to Jackson Hole, Wyoming on a company trip. And this company rented us snowmobiles and snowsuits and the whole deal. And we rode from wherever we were, Jackson Hole, all the way. I mean, we rode 70 miles in the snow. And we got a bunch of geocaches. I got Old Faithful on a snowmobile.
Nice.
And so we got a bunch of virtual geocaches while we were on this trip. And we were literally 2 to 6 miles from Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And the snow was so bad, they wouldn't let us go on snowmobiles. Or at least not us go,
Right.
So Montana is the 3rd state I don't have.
I'm sure it's on your bucket list, your geocaching checklist.
It is. It is. And the other thing I wrote down is that I kind of wrote down well, first of all, the first year I geocached was my biggest year, but this year I'm going to beat it. But I did look, and this year has been a big year. In May, I got 442 caches in May, 229 in one day. And I owe all that to Mingo Madness.
That's impressive.
Well, it's, for people that like numbers, it was a big deal to me because I had goals this year to go out and and not be lazy and really do it. So it was helpful. It was helpful.
So tell us about the Where Is It Now podcast. First of all, why did you name the podcast after your geocaching name?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm surprised you didn't ask why I named myself with an exclamation mark. But do you care if I go back there and tell that story?
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, when I made my account, it says choose a name. And I don't know how many of you experienced this issue, but every name I chose was taken. Every name. So I chose Where, it was taken. Where is it? Taken. You know, I did a bunch of others I can't remember. And finally, I was thinking of Seinfeld, what is that event they have every year? God, I hate to go blank on your podcast. But anyway, Festivus. Every year they have Festivus, and then they air their grievances and they do all this stuff. And if you remember, the dad screams every year, "Serenity now, serenity now." Well, I was thinking of that episode because I was literally screaming at my phone, "Where is it now?" And I screamed that, and by God, it was taken too. So I put an exclamation after it and clicked OK, and it took it, and I screamed, "No, I don't want that." So it was really a hassle to sign a name that long. So I did buy a stamp, but yeah, it's been the bane of my existence, honestly. So as far as the podcast goes, I named it that because it just seemed like such a good name for a geocaching life. Where is that darn thing? And so it just was kind of natural. My wife likes to point out that I'm an only child. And why do I have my picture on the logo and on the side of the car and on the table? And so I don't know. There could be deep-rooted issues there.
I just thought it was because you were so photogenic,
Thank you. Well, that's a cartoon, so I don't know how to take that.
I don't know. Take that however you want to.
Excellent.
So did you ever think about changing your geocaching name?
Yeah, I did it last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and then I changed it back a couple days later. Yeah, I really did. So and you and I occasionally meet on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And I joined a lot of the podcasting Clubhouse rooms there. And I happened to be in one where there were a lot of experts that weren't paid experts for a change. dig.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a bunch of really cool people that had podcasts that were very successful. And they really enjoyed that it was about geocaching. But the one thing they said was, you have got to change the name of your podcast. Not because they didn't like Where Is It Now, because I did ask the question about SEO and how more people could readily find me. And they said the problem was it needed to say geocaching first, not Where Is It Now first. And so I changed it, actually, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, to geocaching with Where Is It Now. Okay. And it went all across, and it renamed everything on every platform, all the episodes, it renamed them. However, all the t-shirts, the coins, the car,
the stuff that's already been printed. Yeah.
All the things still said, Where Is It Now? And it just felt wrong. And so I decided to do the wrong thing because I wanted to. So I changed it back about 5 days later.
I love it. That just seems so on brand with you, listening to your podcast and everything. I love it. It's always an adventure when we listen to one of your episodes.
Well, you're never any more surprised than I am what I'm going to talk about or what I say. It is one of the benefits to living my life these days is I literally have no one to tell me what to do.
You mean your wife doesn't do that for you?
No, and I don't tell her what to do either, but no, not
Well, that
really.
works then.
I mean, over the years, I've become my own boss in everything I do. And the pandemic made it where I didn't have to put clothes on or get out of bed. I mean, think about it, you know?
Yes, many of us rolled to our computers in pajama pants. Yes.
Well, good for you. I mean, I did a Zoom meeting today and I started it before they got on and I didn't have my pants on. And I thought, something could go wrong. So I changed my camera. I was thinking about that news sorry, that newsman or that weatherman. Oh, it was a newsman on like Fox or something that
Yeah.
his kid ran through the wall, which was really a door, and he stood up and he was in his boxers. So
Yeah.
I thought I don't want anything weird to happen. And so I was in my swimsuit. I wasn't naked. But I did put on a shirt. If I'd had a tie, I would have done that. But yeah, I mean, literally during pandemic, you could really dress down. And I went from wearing jackets and going to an office every day to just kind of, shorts and flip flops.
And then you started a podcast.
Yeah. The question all my friends ask me or the people in business ask me is why geocaching? I mean, I get that you started a podcast, but why about geocaching? And the truth is, I could have started it because once again, only child kicking in. I do feel like I'm an expert on everything, even if I've never heard of it before. So anyway, there are a couple of things I could have done a podcast on and been fairly knowledgeable about, but I chose geocaching because I love it and because I didn't want to do it for money.
So you just one day said, I'm going to make a podcast. Let's do it.
Almost that. I will tell you this, I've always listened to a lot of podcasts. And for some examples, some of my favorite are the TED Hour. I love TED Talks.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things on NPR, like I'm going to have a hard time thinking of them, but there's a bunch of podcasts on there I like listening to, like This American Life, and I'll just go on and on. They're all, and anything about science or math. And by the way, no, I'm not good at science or math, but I like those things. And I was listening to those, and I found myself during the pandemic listening to more podcasts than I'd ever listened to in my life. And I also found myself, I was always a talk radio listener, even though I'm in the music business and I'm a musician. I like listening to stories and talk. But during the pandemic, or maybe it wasn't the pandemic, but all news feeds and all talk radio became so political and so divisive that I just had to turn it off. So I went totally to podcasts. Well, anyway, I was sitting out here in the recording studio where I'm supposed to be recording bands and myself and releasing music and all the things music. And I hadn't recorded anybody for a few months, and it just hit me. I'll just record a podcast. And I did.
And then it started.
And I had a dream for it that didn't come true. I found out that my vision for my podcast, I had two of them and they were diametrically opposed to each other.
How so?
Well, one thought is I wanted to have it in 30 minutes or less. And as my thing sometimes lies and says, escape the muggles in your life for 30 minutes or less. It's almost always less than 30 minutes, but not always. But anyway, I wanted it to be short, but I also wanted it to be like, and I'm going to have to go back in time. For those of you that are youngsters, you may have heard of Johnny Carson or the Lucy Show or all kinds of shows where they had a lot of guests, late night shows where they just had multiple guests. Mm-hmm. And my theory was I wanted to have little segments somewhere between Saturday Night Live and a late night talk show where things zipped in and out. Well, those two things do not go together. So I did the first episode, and what I found out is I learned the hard truth about how many hours of editing go in per minute of recording?
Yes.
You're shaking your head. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is.
And so I
Mhm.
was new. I wasn't new at editing, but I was new at editing podcasts. And I threw everything out the window after, and I do want to exaggerate, actually. I want to totally exaggerate.
You like to
After,
exaggerate.
I love it. I mean, it's a freedom that I want to enjoy.
But to be
After,
fair, you do let people know that I'm going to exaggerate here. And you do
yeah,
that in the podcast.
yeah, I want to tell you I'm going to lie to you right before I do it so that there's no hard feelings. Um, yeah, after editing for literally what was more than 12 hours to release that 33-minute podcast, it really was, because I kept going back, and the problem was I recorded too much, and so I had to take a lot out. And as people will hear if you don't know me from this podcast, I talk too much. And so most of my editing on don't laugh. Most of my editing on every podcast is me just taking myself out of it, you know, not my guest. But anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. So when I found out that, and then I had all these plans for sound design, I was going to do all these cool sound textures and things in the podcast. There's no time for that. I am a crew of one, you know. So my dream didn't actually happen.
But we still have a podcast.
We do, for
And
better or
it's
worse.
entertaining. I'm always entertained by it.
Oh, I listen sometimes and I cringe, and I just have to. Have you ever written a text or an email that you weren't sure you should send or not, and in the end you just had to click send and then you couldn't get it back?
Yes.
That's my life with podcast. Yeah.
I can understand that. I do the recording. I listen back when I'm editing, and I enjoy it then. But then when it's actually live and it's in the podcast app, it's like I don't want to listen to myself at that point. Like I'm tired of myself at that point. So I do get it, but I do enjoy the Where Is It Now podcast. We started our podcast. We didn't know it at the time, but we started podcasting roughly about the same time, I think.
Yeah, I started in March of 2020.
Yeah, that's when I started, was sometime
I think
early
we
March
started
of
within
2020.
weeks. Now, my
Yeah.
start date is also a lie now because you know, here's the thing. The other day did you hear episode 50 where I went back and listened to all 50
Yes, I did.
episodes? Good Lord. Oh my. You talk about a humbling experience. There were some real doozies in there, and not the good kind, but there were some that I'd like to have back, and yet they're there. But anyway, here's my point, is that when I listened to the first podcast, which I assumed was the worst podcast, I actually didn't cringe for the first time ever. And what hit me is that music at the end. I went, oh yeah, I love that music. And I haven't heard it forever. I've been using that Irish ending for so long. And I remember the first time I did it, Joe Berner sent me a message, and you could hear him slapping his knee, not really, on Facebook and Messenger, saying, oh my God, that music at the end is hilarious. Well, I didn't mean it to be funny. But anyway, I heard their original music and went, I love that. So I went back the other day and edited. I went back into episode number 1, turned it back into a draft, and copied the end of that thing with the music on it back into my DAW and my recording software. And when I republished episode 1, it published it as September 7th, 2021.
That's why that popped up again.
Yeah.
I saw that pop up, but I thought, oh, maybe he's just doing a throwback or something, because sometimes podcasts do that.
No, this is a case of the person at the wheel not knowing how to drive. So I fixed it. Today I Googled it, and Google, literally knows everything. And so I Googled it, and there was a quick and easy answer, and I've got it back into March of 2020. but I couldn't remember the date. So I made it March 1st. And I don't think that's true.
Hey, you did your best. That's all that matters, right?
Absolutely.
So, in case people have not gotten an idea of what your typical podcast episode is from listening to this witty banter back and forth, can you kind of walk us through what's a typical episode like for you? And I know that's maybe not the easiest question.
I can divide it into three types of episodes. Number one, it's me by myself because I don't have a guest or a co-host. Number two, it's me and a co-host, which, by the way, when you talk about this banter going back and forth, this is my favorite thing in the world. If I could have a co-host every time, that would make it more fun for me. Okay, so me and a co-host. And then the third one is sometimes the interviews. And because I don't plan in advance, as I've advertised many times, I generally, like you sent me an email with what you were going to ask me and a Zoom link, and you did it way in advance and it's on a calendar somewhere. I sent somebody a message yesterday asking if they wanted to be on the podcast tomorrow, and that's about as much notice as most people get. But anyway, those are the three things I do. And I like mixing it up because honestly, a guest and myself is more editing. Myself is the fastest. So it's those three things. And I think the subjects really kind of cover anything about geocaching, whether it's something I read about or something I experienced myself or something someone told me. And the truth is my least favorite episode to record is when I tell you what I did podcasting this week. But sometimes it's all I got.
So sometimes in your episodes, usually when you're with a guest, sometimes by yourself, you stop and go, you say, I'm going to stop here and go get a geocache. Are you actually stopping and geocaching at that point and then coming back and recording?
Yes, 99% of the time. And that's not a lie or an exaggeration. Almost always. We don't say it as much anymore, and I still do it. And so here's my theory. And I invite you, for those listening, we don't live that far apart. It's 4.5 hours, but it's on one. We don't even have to turn. We could just get on the highway.
Down 70. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, in my case, it's 44.
Okay. That's right. I'm thinking Kansas City.
I'm in
further south.
Joplin.
You're in Joplin.
So anyway, we're close by. If you would come here, you would see why, because one of the issues I have is because I have so much free time to geocache and others don't. I have a hard time finding people to geocache with. So when I have a guest, it's like, hey, let's go find a geocache. Okay. So the answer is, yeah, we do take a break. Oftentimes it's the next day before we come back.
Okay.
So sometimes it's really 10 minutes or 4 minutes, but it's never 4 minutes. I think the shortest one we ever did was about 35 minutes, 45 minutes to get there, get a geocache, get back. But generally we do that. We go geocaching for the afternoon and we come back the next day and take up where we left off.
Okay. So you have mentioned on the podcast before the 4-State Geocaching Society Facebook group.
Yes.
That's a long name.
Well, that's because you want to hear the real name?
Yes.
It's the 4-State Geocaching Society. No, that's the full name.
That's the full name.
Yeah. Not just group, it's society.
So
group.
there is actually a society, and this is just the Facebook group for it.
Well, no.
Sort of, yes. Maybe? No?
Here's the thing. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this. We built the racetrack first, and then we bought a car, or vice versa, whichever way is backwards. So the answer is there isn't actually a society now, but there was not. So this is another example. I looked at this, and I started that group October 14th, 2013, which was a few months. I started caching in January the 11th, 2013. So this was the same year. And here's the truth. I was lonely, geocaching lonely. And I'd been out geocaching solo. My wife didn't want to go. My friends were like, I don't know. And I wanted to meet other geocachers and I didn't know how to do it. So I started that group not knowing any geocachers and never having been to an event. And when we started the group, people started kind of joining. And then I started going to groups. And now we actually do events for the 4-State Geocaching Society. And we kind of travel all over the 4 states and do those.
And for those not familiar with the area, what are the 4 states?
Those are Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma.
And who all can join the society? Do you have to be in one of those states to join, or can any geocacher join?
Anybody can join, and you just need to be a human being on planet Earth, and you need to be a geocacher, and you are in. Here's the thing. We have people from all over the country and a few other countries that have joined, and I don't really know why, but they're welcome to do it. Literally, we have just under, we're at 994 members right now. So we're getting very close to that magic 1,000 number. Mm-hmm. And I promise you, in my town, we don't have that many geocachers. But we do have a lot in those 4 states. And it does give us a way to communicate and talk and have a sense of community that I really like. And so there's a lot of, every year there's less and less Facebook, right? And more other like Instagram, Snapchat, it spreads out. But the thing is, we have lots of photographs, lots of events, lots of advertisements for podcasts like yours. You're welcome to do that. And just all the things geocaching. So I literally started that, and I was the only person that I knew that geocached for a while.
And now there's almost 1,000 in the group. So it's
almost 1,000.
It's grown quite a bit from day one.
Hey, I want to tell you about one event, and maybe you could come this year. We do have an event usually the second Saturday of every year, and we've had it every year, but one. And it's the second Saturday in December, and it's the annual 4-State Geocaching Society Christmas party. And the society, we sell our coins, and we take 100% of that money, and we buy meat and gifts. So like last year, we gave away gift bags with flashlights and decals and swag and all kinds of things to everybody that came. And we try to have a lot of items to give away. There's no people bring potluck. They bring like sides and desserts, and the society provides all the meat, the venue and everything. And it's inside and warm. And so you would be invited to come, and you could do a podcast live from the Christmas party.
I would love that. I'm looking at the calendar right now, and that would be December 11th. So I'll have to play that one by ear, but
yeah, I mean, listen,
but yes, hopefully I can.
I hold out so much hope for you.
Well, my husband's family, his mom's side usually does a big Christmas dinner early December on a Saturday down in Bernie, Dexter, Missouri area. So pending on the day what weekend they pick for that, it may or may not land on that weekend, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll see. I was so excited. In fact, I think it's on my next podcast, if not my last one. I talked about you, and I said, "Oh my gosh, Amy went geocaching. It's so awesome. Look at all the geocaches she got." Because I know you don't get to go as much because you have a young gentleman that lives with you and a husband.
Yes, yeah. A muggle husband of all things.
It's the hardest thing in the world to be married to a muggle. And yet, what would happen if we were married to people that wanted, well, I don't know about you, but if I was married to someone that wanted to geocache as much as I did, we'd just be in trouble.
There'd be a lot of geocaching going on.
There would.
No, I did. I got to do a lot of geocaching over Labor Day weekend because we went to the St. Louis Zoo, which we love to do anyways. And there happens to be 2 adventure labs there now. And we did the virtual. And I told my husband up front, I have planned this out. I am geocaching at the zoo. I just have to answer questions around the zoo. It's like, okay, fine. So we did it, because if you're not familiar with the St. Louis Zoo, it's just plan on being all there all day. It is massive. It is a great time. 5 hours, and we saw most of the zoo, but we did skip a couple of things just because it's a lot, especially for a 7-year-old to walk around all day doing that. So I was excited I got to do that. And then I ended up hitting the Reach the Peak for this month because of that. So it worked out.
For this month or last month?
I thought it was last month. I don't know why I thought it was last month, but it was because we went on whatever Monday was, the 5th or whatever it was.
Oh.
And I don't know why I was thinking we were still in the previous souvenir.
Well, you should have been. I didn't think it changed over till the 6th.
I didn't think so either, but apparently it did. So that's okay.
Well, I have 0 points for the 6th. So I haven't gotten any yet this month, but I am saving up. I'm saving up around my area so that I don't fail, I hope.
There you go. I did get the base camp, the first souvenir for last month. I did manage to go out and get that on International Geocaching Day and get that souvenir as well. So I squeaked one in. But yeah, I unfortunately don't get to go nearly as much as I would like to. And I think a lot of geocachers might be able to say that as well, but
I think they are. And I will tell you that, and I'm being serious, even though we're about to look, you're already laughing. No, this is it. Remember, I tell you when I lie and I tell you when I'm going to be serious.
It's the giant grin you get on your face right before you say it. Like you've got this trick up your sleeve. You're going to pull a rabbit out of a hat, but the hat's not there.
It's magic. No, I sometimes feel guilty. That's what I was going to tell you. I am so blessed right now to be able to travel a lot and to geocache a lot in a lot of different places. And honestly, sometimes I hate to say, today I'm in Minneapolis, and then 2 days later I'm in Fort Worth, and 2 days later I'm in, wherever I am. But that's kind of my life, whether I geocache or not.
Yeah.
And so I do talk about it.
So you might as well take advantage and geocache.
I might as well, but I feel a little guilty about it because there are so many people that would love, people always are saying it must be nice. And the truth is, it is nice, but I want to take you all with me.
And we get to do that through your podcast.
Well, there you go.
Live vicariously through the podcast. I live vicariously through my trackables as they move around to different places.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I love everything geocaching. It's a disease. You realize that. Or it is the way I do it.
Maybe it's the way you do it. I don't know.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Where Is It Now? I'm addicted to geocaching.
And we're okay with it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about geocaching?
Oh,
I know that's a hard question.
It is, but if I'm really honest, I think it has to do with probably, I don't know how to say this, but I think it has to do with my need to finish lists. Okay. So in all areas of my life, I'm a list finisher. And so that's why when I collect something, I have to have them all and et cetera. So I think one of my favorite things is getting new counties and watching the map grow. And, the thing is, there's a finite number of counties and I can't win. And that does bother me. I mean, there are people, you had a guest on that had all but one county. And he said he couldn't get that county because there's a leper colony in that county in Hawaii.
Yes, the one that was Maxby on the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the one county they can't, I don't think there are any geocaches allowed in that county because it's a leprosy colony.
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, my mind went to, is it worth getting leprosy to, of course not. And if anyone listening has a family member, I apologize. But yeah, so I can't win. I can't be first. And so all I can do is it's kind of like golf. You're playing against the course. And I really love getting counties and driving places. So that's number one. But really, when you look at all the lists in geocaching, it's souvenirs. I love getting souvenirs. I love getting counties. I love filling in the grids on all kinds of caching. I really love it all. But I wrote down that my two favorite things probably are that moment when you're driving somewhere you've never been before and you turn a corner and you're just struck dumb from how beautiful the area you are is, and you would have never seen it. And you heard a lot from geocachers, seeing things I would have never seen if I didn't geocache. And so that's number one, and probably number two is counties.
How many states have you completed county-wise?
I think just two still. So Delaware was my first one, and it has 3 counties. But here's the thing: it took me 3 trips to finish it. So I know.
It sounds funny, but still, at the same time, depending on where you're going in Delaware, that's quite the haul to get all 3 of them. So I was consulting an account in Lewis, Delaware, which, by the way, is the oldest. I think I'll say this right. The oldest city. Well, I'm not going to be able to say it right, but it's really an old town, right? And but I had an account in Connecticut, and I would fly into Pennsylvania, drive to Connecticut, consult them all day, hop in the car after I was done, and drive from kind of northern Connecticut to the southern tip of Delaware and spend the night just like at 1 or 2 in the morning. So getting those and then the next morning I had to get up and drive back to, I think it was Pittsburgh, and catch a flight out. So anyway, getting those counties was like, I had to do it at night or when I was dead tired. So I got one each trip. So anyway, like this is typical, where is it now? Big left turn. So that was my first county. Kansas was my second one. And I can honestly say, I believe I've driven through every town, city, seen every courthouse in the entire state. That's what I've really covered. And then Florida, I have 1 county left. Missouri, I have 3. And that's so close to those 2.
So close.
You'll get them. I have faith in you.
I will. I'm going to start, planning trips as I usually do and go get them. And as long as I don't look at other people that are doing counties, I'm still motivated.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about you compared to the others. It's the whole point of geocaching is whatever you want to make of it. That's the great thing about it. You can make geocaching into whatever you want. Is there anything else you want to share with us today about geocaching or the podcast or the Facebook group?
Well, I don't know. I can't think of anything. The thing is I can't think of anything, but I will say this. I enjoy your podcast, and I don't know if you know this. You probably don't. This is the first podcast I've ever been on.
Is it?
Yeah, besides mine.
Well, I'm honored to have you on here. We've been talking about having you coming on here for. People obviously don't know this, but Mike and I, we text back and forth sometimes. We talk on Clubhouse sometimes, and we've mentioned a couple of times. I've been on your podcast, and I've mentioned a couple of times I need to get you onto mine, and finally sent you a text and said, "Hey, my house is not currently under construction. Can you do one of these dates work for you?" And I'm really glad it worked out.
I am too, but I just want to point out to the listeners that this is one of the issues with being a good planner like you are. Are you an engineer? I can't remember.
I am an engineer.
Well, yeah. I would have never known it, but No, but you're a really good planner, like most of the world should be. Therefore, you actually are booked up in advance. And I think you were saying that we would record now, which is, I don't know if you want people to know when it is, but we're recording now. And you told me it was going to come out. And I don't even know if I'm still going to be alive that long.
I
Good
hope
Lord.
so. It's only a couple months.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, a couple of months, I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I wish I hadn't have said that I hope, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive, but you're such a good planner that I was worried if I would ever get on here because I'm such a bad planner. I had to keep setting reminders that this was coming up.
Well, I have to be a good planner. I have a small child that depends on me to be a good planner to get him places. So I'm kind of forced to be, which is fine. It works out. I don't mind the chaos, but I also sometimes just need to go, okay, we need to do A, B, C, and D and just get it done because I am the chaos manager at home. So
I got you. I got you.
which is why I made my husband set up a shared calendar with me so he doesn't have an excuse for not knowing something's going on other than he doesn't look at his phone. So
If I told you how many times my wife has said, why don't you share your calendar with me so I'll know what city you're going to be in? No.
well, I usually do a cache highlight, and I completely forgot to ask you if you had a cache you wanted to highlight for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be quick about it, except for I'm saying that while I'm Googling the cache I'm talking about. So I have a favorite cache in the whole world. And I really, I talk about going places that and seeing things I've never seen or I wouldn't have seen it if I wasn't geocaching. In this case, I would have seen it, but it was my favorite thing about going to this amazing place, and that was the geocache. And the GC number is GC A as in Alpha 68D as in Delta, and that is Stonehenge and just outside of London, and it is a virtual cache, although there are a couple of caches there. I remember the first time I went to New York City, and I got to experience all the things I saw in movies and on TV and in songs, and how inspiring that was. Stonehenge was another one of those things that was unbelievable to me, that I would actually ever be standing in front of it. And the fact that I got to stand in front of it with my grandson, and we were both geocaching and log a geocache, was the event of a lifetime for me. So that's my favorite geocache. It's a virtual. I can't spoil it. You go there, it's big rocks. You will see them. You will answer the question. You will get credit.
Is it just one? Do you remember if it's just one question that you had to answer? Or
I don't remember. There were actually a couple of virtuals there. I don't remember. It's been a few years ago, but I just remember that was a great trip. And even though my grandson does geocache, it was his 21st birthday, and he's like everybody in moderation, everybody but me. And so we got to do some geocaching, but that was so much fun. Loved it.
That's great. It sounds like it was a very memorable trip, and that's one of the places on my must travel to someday, is to go to Stonehenge. And luckily I haven't been before I started geocaching, because that's do you have that? You probably don't have that hindsight regret for geocachers of, oh, if only I had known about geocaching 3 months ago when I was on this trip and I could have been to all these places. And
I actually do have that. I mean, there are places that I went. Of course, I don't know if geocaching didn't exist when I went to some of the places, and they weren't amazing places, but I would have got credit for a few more Caribbean countries.
We were actually on a vacation down in Florida about 2.5 months before I started actively geocaching. It's one of those of dang, but
Darn
oh
it.
well.
Well,
We got to do the trip, so I can always, I have more excuses to go back now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. And I'll link to your podcast and the Facebook group in the show notes for anybody that wants to go check yours out. I recommend it. I'm always very entertained by your podcast. Never quite sure where the trip is going to end, but we always get there in the story. So
I
it's
hope
always
so.
fun.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. I hope your editing isn't as bad as I think it's going to be.
We'll see. Thank you for listening to Geocache Adventures with me, Shadow Dragon 1. Have you heard of FTF Magazine? It's the magazine for geocachers. It is full of articles and photos, all sent in by geocachers like you. In fact, some of the guests that you've heard on this show have submitted articles to Geocacher Magazine. They have all kinds of neat stuff and publish achievements that are sent in by geocachers. So if you have an achievement you want to celebrate, send it in and they will add it to the magazine. It is really cool. I recommend it. I subscribe to it myself and I love it. Go check it out at ftfgeo.com. That's ftfgeo.com. And let them know Shadow Dragon 1 sent you. Would you like to be a guest on the show? Do you have a topic you'd like to hear more about? Let me know at geocacheadventures.org. Go over to the contact page and you can send me a message there. It has the podcast email that you can email me to, or you can reach out to Shadow Dragon 1 on geocaching.com. Geocacheadventures.org also has a store page now. You can go over there, geocacheadventures.org, and click on the store page in the menu bar and check it out. Got some great stuff over there for you.